This bell, manufactured by the MC Shane Bell Foundry in Baltimore, Maryland, 1892, was rung to summon the tobacco growers, company buyers, and tobacco warehousemen for the start of a tobacco auction sale. Prior to this time, a bugle announced the sale. The last location of this bell was in the Central Warehouse on Union Street in the center of Danville. In 1869, the centennial celebration took place in 1969 between September 20th and 27th, 1969 of the Danville Tobacco Association. And this was donated by Dr. and Mrs. L.O. Crumpler. This is the Foundry Bell, Danville, Virginia. Let's go. What up, good people? This is P9 with another video, and I am here in the city of Danville, Virginia. Danville is an independent city in Virginia, and the city is located on the south side region of the state. And might I add, Danville is the southernmost major city in the state of Virginia. It sits on the fall line of the Dan River. And Danville was a city that was of major significance during the American Civil War as far as Confederate activity is concerned, due to a strategic location on the Richmond and Danville Railroad. And it temporarily served as the third and final capital of the Confederacy before it surrendered later that year. So also major tobacco production area Danville is. And this mural right here that was done by Wes Hardin symbolizes its importance in the railroad industry. As you can see right here, again, this is Wes Hardin who did this really nice piece. And there goes the railroad mural, and it says the old 97. So this is where I'll start a video off. And just to give some context behind this mural, it's called The Wreck of Old 97. And this mural, the work of Alabamian Wes Hardin, depicts the express mail train number 97 pulled by engine 1102 crossing the trestle above Steelhouse Branch in North Danville on September 27th, 1903, leaving Washington 1 hour late, bound for Atlanta. The fastest train on the Southern Railroad plunged 45 feet from that trestle, killing 11 of its crew and injuring 6. Wow. Only one individual aboard escaped injury. 5 men of the crew are seen in this inset. Depicted 2 are some of the hundreds of canaries that escaped their cages in the baggage car. The song Wreck of Old 97 sold more than 6 million records and made the wreck famous. So yeah, this is a historical mural, and the Virginia Commissions of Arts and the Danville Historical Society, along with Mr. and Mrs. Robert Warren, Norfolk Southern Foundation, all donated to making this work possible. So as you can see again, and that was a very tragic moment. Let me go over here real quick to see where those canaries were, because it did mention there was some canaries on the actual art piece. Okay, there it is, right over there. Yeah, the canaries, the top right hand corner. So yeah, that's an extremely tragic moment. And Wes Hardin, again, shout out to him. He's from Alabama, just like myself. That'd be good if I could link up with Wes Hardin wherever he is. That was a really nice art piece right there. But we're right over here on Main Street. There's a lot to unpack with Danville. It's a pretty nice size downtown. So the city itself looks like it's a pretty major city, obviously, in Virginia. It's probably one of the cities you don't hear much about. You hear mostly about Williamsburg, Richmond, Arlington and Virginia Beach, Norfolk, all of that. But you don't really hear much about Danville, at least as an outsider, if you're not from the state. It goes First National Bank building right over here. And I also want to get back over here real quick to this Mountain Outfitters store. So I just looked back and realized I missed this piece right here. Moss Mountain Outfitters. So that's good that they have this shop right here in the heart of downtown. And they also have this this carved out wooden carve out of this, looks like a anonymous dude with a hat on his head. But this was established in 2020, so I'm guessing this store possibly might have opened in 2020 during the pandemic year. So shout out to Mouse Mountain Outfitters. That's a Danville Public School building right there. Once again, First National Bank building right here. A really nice brick building over here. We also have this downtown record store. This building looked like it might have possibly been a warehouse back in the day. Actually, it looks like it's called the Belt Leggett Building. So like it was built like back in the early 1900s. And there goes a nice painting in there as well. Jackie's Beauty Supply across the street. They also have a boutique and a school of dance right next to Jackie's. And this building looks pretty interesting over across the street. I wonder if that used to be a hotel. Wow. But it sits at the corner of Main and Union Street. Yo, look at this park right here. Goes a nice sculpture around these gardens. And this building used to be the home of Dan River Fabrics. And you see the iconic home red neon sign right here. But yes, the Dan River Fabrics is a famous mill, or it was located on top of Danville's historic White Mill from 1948 to 2007. The White Mill is the only surviving building of the Riverside division of Dan River Inc., Danville's textile company that employed thousands of local people over a span of 125 years. A second home of Dan River Fabrics sign also formerly sat on top of of a building in the Schoolfield Mills division west of downtown. The Danville Historical Society purchased and stored the White Mill sign until 2015, when several of the letters were taken out of storage, repaired, and displayed. For nearly 60 years, the sign welcomed welcoming and remained a welcoming beacon to visitors and to residents returning home to Danville. Now, thanks to creative local initiative, these four letters are welcoming people here once again, welcoming people home once again. So yes, this is the building that used to occupy, or was occupied by Dan River Fabrics. So they maintained it pretty well, and it's now occupied, or it looks like it used to be occupied, by Downtown Record Store. A hat store, Angie's Hats. And it used to be a barber shop called Simeon's, but it doesn't look like Simeon's is there anymore. So it's really only one company that pretty much occupies this building now. And there goes a mural right here. It's a mural that symbolizes basically pre-automobile Danville. So you have the street cars, as you can see, and this was also done by Wes Hardin. So Wes Hardin must be I gotta look up Wes Hardin. He said he does some really good work. And it was good that I was able to meet the brother Yusuf when I was in Princess Anne, Maryland, by the way. So it'll be good to actually meet Wes Hardin as well. But this mural right here talks about Danville streetcars. And in 1886, Danville's first trolleys used to mule power to pull them from the train station on Craighead Street to the intersection of South Main and West Main Streets. After 2 years, electrically operated vehicles replaced this primitive public conveyance. Using the green and cream color scheme adopted in 1911, modern streamlined vehicles later supplanted the open cars, and in 1938, gasoline-powered buses replaced the iron wheel trolleys, bringing a nostalgic era to an end. Likenesses featured are Walter Gunn assisting wife Gail down the steps as young Andrew Preston Saunders climbs aboard. In the right insert are Mary and K.D. Williams, founders of Mary's Diner. And in the stroller, as you can see right here, the stroller is Jesse Brooks, and the stroller at left is Jesse Brooks. Okay. So the historical murals of Danville expresses his appreciation to the following donors who made the work possible: So you had Jimmy Farlow, Federal Transportation Grant, Gail and Walter Gunn, L. Samuel Sanders, Daily 7, Dorsey and Dale H. Jordan, and Kiwanis Club of Danville Foundation. So these are the images that symbolize the streetcar history of Danville, Virginia. Yeah, so those streetcars were the main method of transportation back in the early 1900s, before the automobile became a staple. And again, eventually the gasoline powered buses will replace the trolleys and the streetcars. But see, a lot of these cities, they're bringing back the streetcars and trolleys, as you've seen in, in modern days, but they're just modernizing it, which I think is pretty cool. Washington D.C. did it with the streetcar. Kansas City done it. I believe Milwaukee did it. Atlanta has a streetcar, and if I'm not mistaken, Cincinnati as well. And this is the Danville Transfer Center right here. So I'm guessing this is for the local transit department. And that building used to be the mini market. So you have a few abandoned buildings over in this vicinity. Approaching the corner of Union Street and Spring Street. And this used to be a bank, but now the building is for sale by Wilkins and Company Realtors. For those interested, there goes the number right over there. Deron Clements, looks like he's the agent. There goes the number right there. Anybody who might be interested in investing. But yes, this building was once occupied by the First State Bank, and it was one of the few banks in Virginia owned by African Americans. Opened on September 8th, 1919 at the Savings Bank of Danville. By issuing loans to individuals, businesses, and churches, the bank fostered the black community's vitality during the end of segregation. Maceo Conrad Martin, an officer of the bank from 1919 to 1970, became its president in 1951 and was later president of the National Bankers Association, the only black member of a special 7-man grand jury called during Danville civil rights demonstrations of 1963. Martin issued a lone dissent against the indictments of protesters. First State Bank posted bond for nearly 20 jailed demonstrators. Wow, that's dope. That is dope. So that goes to show you during that time how unified the black community, African Americans, were. I mean, when those demonstrations happened and those protesters got arrested, the bank came together and put together, bond money. And of course, during those times too, those black banks, they would issue out loans to individuals who might have wanted to start a business or wanted to buy a home, and those were like little to no interest loans. Many of those loans might have been no interest at all, You just pay it back over time, and that was that. So that was really the cool part of history right there, especially as it pertains to Black America. You know, there was prosperity and vitality in the Black community for sure. But yes, this is over here on Union Street. Doesn't look like much going on over here on Union Street. Some abandoned buildings, or this one abandoned building right here. But they do have this historic building across the street called the Merritt Building. So that's nice. They have a Main Source fashion store across the street. That's an operational business, it looks like. But they're closed now. Like a lot of these spots are closed because it is Sunday. They have a barbershop right here as well called Headhunters. But I wonder what that building is right there. That building across the street. It looks like it looks like it's abandoned. I don't know. I could be wrong on it. It might be occupied. Heck, it might even be the Amtrak station. It might be an Amtrak station. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't see any. I have to get closer up, but if anything, I don't think it's an Amtrak station though. I think it might be a little too big for that. It was definitely once upon a time a warehouse or a factory. And if it is occupied, it was converted for another use. But they have right here the Charles Harris Financial Service Center. I see a few people going in and out of the building. But check this out. You have this nice sculpture right here. It sits in front of this financial service building. Okay, I just looked it up. It's called the Dan Rivers Mills. It's the Dan Rivers Mills. That's what it is. I just looked it up. I need to get a closer look at this bad boy. Yep, that used to be the mills, of Dan River Mills. Okay, makes sense because it literally sits right by the river. Okay, guys, it's a lofts building, so they have lofts for residents. I kind of figured that's probably what it was, but I wasn't sure. But it's called Dan River Falls Lofts, so it is a residential building. And over to the left is they have some waterfalls. They have the actual falls over here that run into the Dan River. I'm gonna see if I can get a view of it from over here. Now, Danville is bigger than I thought it was. They have a pretty massive downtown. But let me go check these falls out. You can see right here, Dan River Falls. There goes the flow of the river right here. Railroad bridge. And an auto and pedestrian bridge right over there where the falls are. So that's pretty dope, man. They got a whoever lives in these lofts, they have a, especially on this side, really good view of the river. And I'm pretty sure those on the other side do too. But they have on this side, they have a good view of the river and the falls. But yep, that's the Dan River Lofts right here in the Dan River. Nice. Continuing down Main Street here in Danville, Virginia. And this is Sunday morning, so of course not a lot of people out, which is cool. Because, you know, not a lot of traffic, but it would be nice to see a few people out. But this is a pretty cool vibe nevertheless. They have a bookshop, the Dog-Eared Page. That's an interesting name for an establishment. But it's outside this building. Chestnut Lane Antique and Interiors. Fashion Design Excess, Fashion Design Alterations. McFeeder's Attorney at Law. Okay. That's and they even have this alley right here. It's called the Opera House Alley, and it became the common name of the alley behind the Danville Opera House located at 541 Main Street in Danville, Virginia. This auditorium, also called the Academy of Music, was one of several in downtown Danville in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The first home of the Danville Opera was located in the Pace Building at 326 Main Street, built in 1875. And also there was a race riot that took place here in 1883. And the Danville Opera House would play a pivotal role in a political coup that would later be known as the Danville Race Riot in 1883. The elections of 1882 marked a shift in political power in the city. Blacks, who held a majority of the population, helped usher in the Readjuster Party. The Readjuster Party, also known as the Coalition Party or Republican Party, started after the Civil War as a biracial political party that advocated for political integration between whites and blacks. You guys heard that, right? The Republican Party back during that time started after the Civil War and was a biracial political party that advocated for political integration between whites and blacks. Keep that in mind. Now, on November 3rd, 1883, a group of about 500 white men from the Democratic Party met at the Opera House to denounce the Readjuster Party campaign platform in the upcoming election. Outside the meeting, a crowd of 200 black spectators congregated following an altercation between a white man and a black man. And as tempers flared, 15 to 20 white men gathered and drew their pistols. When the black spectators turned to run, the group of white men opened fire. The resulting gunfire left 4 black men dead, as many as 9 others blacks injured. And 1 white man was injured when he was accidentally struck by friendly fire. This incident, which drew national attention, greatly affected the elections by suppressing the black vote, and is cited as the onset of the Jim Crow laws in the state of Virginia. And the source of this was Dean Hairston of Danville, Virginia. So a local, shout out to Dean Hairston for providing that information. But yeah, that's crazy when you think about it. But yeah, the Democratic Party was the one that was for segregation and racism and whatnot. But the Republican Party, on the other hand, was a biracial political party. So they were more about integration. The Republican Party was, and this was again late 1800s. And here's an image right here talking about the Majestic Theater and Virginia Theater. So yeah, this is the auditorium back in the day, or the Virginia Theater. Source Jonathan Hackworth of Danville, Virginia. So again, back then too, you had the civil rights in the 1960s. They had separate seating, bathrooms, food vending, and exits. But the civil rights movement ended all of that, and African Americans landed more roles in films, operas, and theatrical performances. And a lot of the local talent was allowed to rise to the surface and appear on national stage, including the famed soprano Camilla Williams, who we have right here. The sister Camilla Williams was born October 18th, 1920. And she basically was known for her role as the heroine in Puccini's Madame Butterfly. Williams' gift of voice came to light in Danville's Calvary Baptist Church. Her early voice lessons were taught by Everett and Stratford College's Raymond Aubrey, but were given in a black woman's home due to Jim Crow segregation. And she received her bachelor's degree at Virginia State College for Negroes, which is now VSU, Virginia State University. In Philadelphia, Williams studied under Marion Skelly Freschel while supporting herself as an usherette in a movie house. And there goes Miss Camilla Williams right there as a young woman. And there goes her right there as well. And her career launched when she won the Marian Anderson Award Vocal Scholarship, and her Danville roots opened a door to stardom. And her father, Cornelius Booker Williams, chauffeured Miss Julian Robinson, who was friends with the niece of Danville's Lady Astor, Miss Gilmore, who lived in Connecticut. Miss Gilmore introduced Camilla Williams to famed soprano Geraldine Farrar, who helped Williams cross over to opera and became her mentor. So, you know, it's a lot of accomplishments here. She also landed a contract with New York City Opera, the first black woman to secure a contract with the United States major opera company. So she sang with the Boston Lyric Opera, Vienna State Opera, Philadelphia Orchestra, and New York Philharmonic. And her popularity also led her to tour for concerts around the world. She served as the first U.S. State Department on a award tour. And she also performed perhaps her most historic performance in singing the Star Spangled Banner at the 1963 March on Washington before the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, excuse me. So yeah, she performed the iconic Star Spangled Banner in front of Dr. King for his iconic I Have a Dream speech. Okay. And she married Charles T. Beavers, a civil rights lawyer and childhood friend who passed away in 1969. And she had no children, being committed to her career. Upon the urging of John Motley, Williams began a second career educating future generation of sopranos. So she taught at Brooklyn College, Bronx College, Queens College, and was the first African-American voice professor at Indiana University. And Virginia State University awarded her honorary doctorate in 1985. So she, you know, of course, as many black women and men during that time, you know, Camilla Williams withstood discrimination and prejudice with grace and professionalism. And Danville, Virginia even named a river park in her honor, and she was inducted into the Danville Music of Fine Arts and History Hall of Fame in 1974. She remarked on the irony as a child. Due to segregation, she was barred from entering the Danville Public Library, which was housed in the Sutherland Mansion. Wow, this story is so captivating. She earned a lot of accolades throughout her career, and this is the first time I've heard of Camilla Williams, to be honest with you. It's a lot of historical black singers, activists, and what have you that they never even taught us about. But this is courtesy of the Danville Museum of Fine Arts and History. So shout out to them for putting that display of history out here on Main Street. Yeah, it's a lot. It's so many other figures, historical figures, that I have to brush up on as far as history is concerned. But we back over here on Main Street. We have a downtown deli, Nana Karen's. Okay. And then nice little tables and chairs right here for outdoor seating. And here we have what looks like possibly another abandoned building. But this is called the Southern Amusement Building. The Southern Amusement Building was built in 1922. So this building is a little bit over a century old. It looks like we have a retail clothing store right here. What's that? How is that pronounced? Rippies? Yeah, I think it's pronounced Rippies. But over 100 years in fashion, and they still going strong right here in Danville. Commonwealth Watch Works. And that across the street looks like a hotel called the Danville House. Another historical building. And this building right here looks really dilapidated. You can see all the wear on the columns, the pipes, and the bricks. But this, at one point in time, was a hotel. It's actually called Hotel Leland. And check this out. It's a nice sculpture, right? Or nice, not sculpture, nice mural. Looks like of a bench. And, you know, some pretty, you know, not too bright colors, but they're, you know, just good enough colors, you know. Nothing too loud. But something just plain and simple, which is really nice, which is really cool, really cool. I like stuff like this. And this is by Phil Ramsey, 2002. Shout out to Phil Ramsey. Nice mural on this Danville printing building. And here comes another historical building right over here. This used to be a funeral parlor. It was built in 1923. It was called Townsend Son Funeral Parlor. Again, it was built in 1923. So it was a funeral home, but it's now occupied by a financial center and some Jones and Associates accountants. Okay. Nice, nice. I'm at the corner of Main Street and Ridge Street. And this particular part of the city, by the way, is called the River District due to its close proximity to the Dan River. And what you have across the street is the federal courthouse. But from what I see from my view over here, doesn't look like it's occupied anymore. It just looks like the structure is still there, but it's no longer occupied. Professional building. Here comes another one of those nationally registered historic places. It's the Main Street Methodist Church. And look at that architecture. And look at those doors right there. And they also have a bell tower up there that was dedicated 1891 and rededicated 100 years later in 1991. United Methodist Church, in loving memory of Cephas Willard Dodson, by his wife and children, Annis Adams Dodson and Mary E. Dodson Randall and Ann Dodson Rand Williams. Okay. Shout out to the Dodson family. You also have this building, which now serves as the Danville Education, Arts and Cultural Center. And you also have this church right here, the Episcopal Church. Another historical building. This is called the Lawson Overbay House. The Lawson Overbay House was built in 1881. So another one of those post-Civil War, late 19th century dwellings. And this building right here, this house was built in 1890. So they do serve very high historical value at the corner of Jefferson and Main Street. All right, now to my history buffs out there, I did miss these markers right here on these cement slabs are over here, downtown Main Street. And this one right here is the last capital of the Confederacy, and this just states how Danville became the last capital of Confederacy in 1865 when Confederate government moved here from Richmond to escape advancing Union troops. Jefferson Davis, president of Confederate States of America, established the headquarters at the home of Major William Sutherland on April 3rd and fled on April 10th after General Robert Lee surrendered at the Appomattox Courthouse 90 miles north of Danville. And the courthouse, or the Sutherland Mansion, still stands at 975 Main Street. Okay, so they had the Sutherland Mansion, and here goes, by the way, here's an image of the Sutherland Mansion, as you can see. And then, of course, you have Danville having many churches. You have Mount Vernon United Methodist Church, Sacred Heart Catholic Church, and the Temple of Beth Shalom. And Danville is called the City of Churches because it is said to have more churches per square mile than any other city in Virginia. The number of churches brings a variety of denominations and diverse architectural styles, which is evident at Sacred Heart Church in 1878, Temple Beth Shalom built 1893, and Mount Vernon built in 1884. Okay. And Danville was also known as Millionaire's Row due to its booming tobacco and textile industries. And these photos were by Leon Taylor. Shout out to Leon Taylor. But these were like the mansions and the big houses. And yes, for many residents, the booming tobacco and textile industries brought wealth. Wealthy businessmen often built fine homes in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to display their prosperity. Because many of these mansions were located along Main Street, the area became known as Millionaire's Row. Today, Millionaire's Row continues to display the finest examples of Victorian and Edwardian architecture in Virginia. And Danville was also a cornerstone in the civil rights movement. And here goes images of Danville during that era. And during the summer of 1963, peaceful demonstrations in Danville resulted in violence after civil rights activists were met with resistance. On June 6, 1963, 200 demonstrators marched on City Hall, leading to several arrests. 4 days later, on June 10th, people attending a prayer vigil for those arrested were confronted by police officers and deputized garbage collectors who used hoses and nightsticks to disperse the protesters. The incident, which resulted in 47 injuries, would later become known as Bloody Monday. These acts led Martin Luther King Jr. to visit the city in July and considered Danville as the site of a massive civil rights campaign, although Birmingham, Alabama was ultimately chosen. Despite the protests, Danville remained officially segregated until the Civil Rights Act was passed by the federal government in 1964. So yes, Danville was a stronghold in the civil rights movement as well. And that segregation, despite those protests, massive protests, segregation didn't go away until the Civil Rights Act was passed. And here goes the hotels, of course. 2 centuries of hotels. You have the Hotel Burton and the Downtowner Motor Inn. In the corner of Main and Union Streets, has hosted hotels since the 1820s. Red Castle Inn was replaced by the Arlington Hotel in 1869. And in 1891, the Arlington was demolished and the Hotel Burton, one of the finest hotels in Danville at the time, was built in its place. The Hotel Burton was replaced in 1962 by modern Downtowner Motor Inn, which was demolished in 2012. So yeah, lots of history associated with Danville, Virginia. Just like every other major city across Virginia and the states all together. And look, there goes, this building is the Masonic Temple actually. So I wasn't sure what it was earlier, but it's called the Masonic Temple. But it doesn't look like there's anything going on there now. It just looks completely abandoned and run down. It looks like I'm coming up on a courthouse. Straight ahead. Yo, check that out. Yo, check out that park down there. Y'all see it? That's one of the more modern parks that I've seen downtown. It's called Union Street Park. And it's right over here on Union Street. And you also have this building right here, which is called the Register. Is the Register building, which based on the name, I'm assuming this is where the publications for Danville were, in this building right here. Or it still is, as a matter of fact. They still is, I believe, still in publication. The Bee also, which was founded in 1899. So those are still functional. The Registry and the Bee are still functional publications. And as you can see right here, they have the Danville Register and Bee right here enclosed in this glass. And outside of this building is this marker that's the Danville system. And on this site stood Neal's Warehouse, where the Danville system of selling tobacco began in 1858. Previously, tobacco had been sold by sample from horse heads or hogs heads, but under the new system, it was sold at auction in open, loose piles so buyers could examine the whole lot. It is in general use today. Okay, so they would sample the tobacco before they would buy it, which makes sense. And they would sell it out of a warehouse. They would sell the tobacco out of a warehouse. That's pretty dope. And it looks like the Bee publication also sponsors these bicycles that you can rent. So it's a bike share programming that they have, where you could come over here, download an app, download the bike share app, and you could ride around the city, rent these bikes. That's pretty dope. That's pretty interesting. It's supported by the Bee. So that's dope. It's always good to have stuff like that for the community. But yeah, that's a really nicely designed park down here. And it's just a timeline of South Union Street from 1877 to 1885. This is when they constructed the new Miller Building in Southwestern Surveying and Publish Company, which is a topographic map of Danville, Virginia. And you also have New and Miller's Carriage and Harness Repository. That's what the building was back then. So these are all courtesy, by the way, of the Danville Historical Society. You had the business section of Main Street back then, and the view of Lower Main Street, and the Union Street filled with horses and wagons, which was obviously common transportation back then. And they had the Knights of Pythias Lodge, Phoenix Lodge, that moves into the 3rd story. And there goes the KP Plasters. English-born Charles Orchin moved in and proceeded to sell mantles, tiles, grates, and interior for marble work. And the Pythian building had 5-course American bond brickwork. Okay. And as you can see, there goes the brickwork right there. And here goes articles from the Danville Register back in the day. And there goes a horse harness. So really nice timeline of history planted right here on the wall before you go down to the Union Street Park. So that's really dope. And what's this? I wonder what this is. This like a, oh, this is a wheelchair. Okay, this is one of those wheelchair ramps, or well, not ramps, but like one of those operating cars to transport you know, wheelchair bound individuals. So it's good that they have that there as well. But let me proceed over here to the courthouse. And there goes the James Ingram Justice Center. I'm across the street over here and get these buildings. And this is City Hall right here. This is Danville City Hall. And here's a sculpture of the mayor of Danville. Or the former mayor of Danville. He was the mayor of Danville. Let me see. It looks like he was the mayor of Danville from 1892 to 1938. So wow, he served a super long time as a mayor. That's over 40 years for sure. But yeah, that was the mayor. His name was Harry Wooding. And this is a sculpture of him that sits right outside of Danville City Hall. It's a really nice sculpture. He had to have been the longest tenured mayor in the history of the city, because he served as mayor for 46 years. But shout out to Harry Wooding. So I wonder, do they have term limits on mayors? I've always been confused about that. I know they don't have term limits on members of the Congress, whether you in the House or you in the Senate, you know. But yeah, this building right here is the James Ingram Justice Center. And here's another historical marker. And this is where in the spring of 1963, local African American ministers and other leaders organized the Danville movement to combat widespread racial segregation and discrimination. On June 10th, 2 demonstrations occurred. Police clubbed and firehosed the marchers, injuring at least 47 and arresting 60. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. offered protesters his full personal support when he arrived in Danville on July 11th. The nonviolent protests, which became known as Bloody Monday, gained national news coverage, and before August 28th, March on Washington, co-led by Reverend Dr. King, both events swelled sentiment in favor of civil rights legislation. So there you have it. You had the civil rights protest that took place at this very center in front of this building. So I'm in the area now around government buildings. This is Patton Street. I'm over here in the Tobacco Warehouse District. And in this district, you have the Golden Leaf building right here. Golden Leaf. And you have this building right over here, which we'll get to in just a second. Looks like some more tobacco warehouses over there. Check out this mural right here. This mural, once again, done by Wes Hardin. Really nice and colorful. And this mural, created by noted artist Wes Hardin, recalls a time when growers from throughout the Piedmont would bring their flu-cured bright leaf tobacco to Danville to be sold. First by bateau, using the Dan River Canal system, then by rail or wagon. Piles of loose leaf tobacco, which allowed for the inspection of individual leaves, were sold under the lilting cadence of auctioneers taking bids. This became known as the Danville system and soon became an industry standard. By the late 19th century, Danville's tobacco warehouse had become a regional hub for the processing, storage, and distribution of the popular golden leaf. And we thank the following for this mural: JTI Leaf Services, William Gentry's son, Senior and son William, in memory of Donnie Buckner and the Walton family, and Oaks Memorials and Signs. So yes, check out, this is another representation of the tobacco industry. Yep. So the tobacco industry in the warehouse and residential district right here in Danville, this was the economic core founded in 1793 at Winds Falls at the Dan River to facilitate tobacco inspection. Danville became a regional center of activity because of the river and later the railroad. Situated in an area especially well suited for the cultivation of bright leaf tobacco, the city became a major tobacco manufacturing center. Textile mills were built in the 1880s, partially financed by the profits from the booming tobacco industry. This district, composed of both industrial buildings and residences, was listed on the Virginia Landmarks Register in 1980 and National Register Restored Places in 1982. So Again, very intriguing history right here in regards to the tobacco industry. Several warehouses which have now been converted into many modern businesses. You have a parking garage right here, and you could tell if you go inside of it, you could tell it used to be a warehouse, because look at the railing that's still up there. Very much a warehouse. Yeah, that's dope though. That's dope that they maintain these buildings and have these modern establishments right here. You have a coffee house, Link's Coffee House. And by the way, I'm over here on Craighead Street. And some of these, of course, have been or converted into apartments. As you can see right here, Riverfront Real Estate. And that one is completely abandoned and in disuse. But here's the apartment building right here. And by the way, this isn't my first time in Danville, Virginia. I actually spent a couple of weeks here. It was with my brother from another mother. Back when I was in high school, back when we was in high school going into our senior year. His older brother used to live and actually worked at the local high school, George Washington High School here in Danville. He was I think a band director out there, but you know, at any rate, me and my bro, we just kicked it with him for probably about a week, if not a little longer. And so yes, that was my first time. I haven't been back ever since then. That was a long time ago. That was the last time I've actually visited Danville. And check out this really nice sculpture right here, this red elephant. Really cool buildings, really nice historical buildings over here. So some of these were also used as storage facilities. And I could only imagine that some of them during the Civil War, if they were up during that time, if these buildings were even built during that time, they might have been built after the Civil War. But if they were up, which I doubt, but if they were up, they would probably be used as a storage for, like, you know, munitions and weapons and stuff like that. And you got this another good sculpture right here. And this material right here is what they use on a lot of ramps, like on those docks and stuff at warehouses. So it looks like they use that material to make that particular sculpture. Whoever did that sculpture did a really good job. Shout out to him or her. And you have this right here, which is the community market here in Danville. And this building was once the Southern Freight Station for the Southern Railroad here in Danville. And check out that planetarium dome structure right there. That dome structure looks really, really dope. And it sits right outside this building, which is called the Danville Science Center. So they do have a science center. So this downtown, including the warehouse district, lots and lots of cool places to check out. And there goes a rail yard over there across the street. And right over here is, last but not least, the crossing at the Dan. So again, you have the Danville Science Center right over here, and the community market that we just passed by not too long ago. And they also have a Riverwalk trail in this area. And this right here is the science station. And I believe this building also houses the Amtrak station. So they do have an Amtrak station right here in Danville. And they have a Pepsi bottling company building. But yes, this is a Danville rail passenger station. that houses the Amtrak. Nice sculpture outside of the building as well, right over here. Now, the Danville station is part of the Crescent line of our Amtrak. The Crescent line operates a daily passenger, long distance passenger train between New York City and New Orleans. And Danville is one of the intermediate stops on the line. But the major stops on that line from New York City to New Orleans, major stops include Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, and Birmingham, Alabama. And this right here, again, this is the Pepsi building. Gibson Beverage Company, Robert Portner Brewing Company, and C.T. Brown Brewing Company is what formerly occupied this building. So that's really nice. And they have, beyond those gates, over there they have a river trail. And over here is the side of the community market. So a lot of tobacco companies within this area, which makes sense because, and it also made it easier to transport the products due in large part because, again, the very important characteristics of a city, features of a city that allow for the distribution of commerce are the railroads and the rivers, and Danville has both of those. So with that in mind, good people, I'm gonna end this video right here in Danville, Virginia, by looking at this sculpture right here. Really nice. And thank you guys for tuning in to yet another P9 production. It means a lot to me, and I'm on that road to 1,000 subs. So if you're new to this channel and would like to subscribe to the channel, I ask that you hit the subscribe button, and as well as the notification bell. That way you get notified each and every time I drop a new vlog. And with that in mind, good people, thanks again for tuning in to this vlog, and see you on the next one. Peace.